Hey guys, hope all of us are doing fine. My name is Ernest and this is Ernest Sciences and Mathematics at TV channel. Before we proceed, I'd like to kindly request our members to subscribe to our channel. Also engage us in the comment section and also ring that notification bell so that we can be getting various updates on the uploads that we do. Now, I normally put a link of similar discussions in the description boxes of various videos. And I'd like to kindly request you to go and check so that you can be getting updates on our various discussion. Now, in this specific discussion, I'm going to look at some of the common terms that we're going to come across in our discussions on various topics under statistics. And this, of course, is not going to form a comprehensive list, but it's going to assist us, of course, comprehend some of the terminologies which are going to be used in various discussions as I've mentioned. Now, to start with, I've mentioned that the concept of the term statistics are basically referred to a collection or an aggregate of numerical facts. And this, of course, gives us a general illustration or a general definition of the concept of statistics. Now, we are going further ahead and say that statistics can be defined as a science of collecting, or that involves the concept of collection, of course, organizing, presenting, and of course interpretation of this specific data. And this is going to be done overall with the main objective of coming up with an effective decision. And these activities are going to be undertaken by maybe an organization or an administrative body, etc. Now, in this case, we're going to see that apart from the concept of statistics, I've mentioned two specific branches of broader branches of statistics, and said that we can divide statistics into two broader branches, which of course include descriptive statistics and then inferential statistics, whereby they defined the concept of descriptive statistics as statistics which of course involve the concept of a summary of calculations, charts, graphs, and tabular forms of this specific type of data. And then I've said that inferential statistics basically is a method that is used to generalize some specific characteristic of a sample that is going to represent a population. Now, in this case, of course, apart from this, there are various other terminologies that we're going to come across, which are going to be applicable in various discussions under the concept of statistics. Now, I'm going to have a range of terms which we are going to, of course, come across, and perhaps I'm going to list them so that we can have a small discussion about them. And in case we come across them in our various discussions, then therefore it's going to be easier for us to comprehend. So we're going to come across the term statistical population. Just going to list the terms, and then we're going to come across the term the sample, the concept of sampling, and then we're going to come across sample size, and then we shall talk about sensors, and then perhaps parameter, and then lastly we shall lastly but not least, we shall look at the concept of a variable. So in this case, we're going to come across these specific terms, and I've said that it is not a comprehensive list of what we are going to come across in our various discussions on the concept of statistics, but I'm going to discuss them as we come across them in our various discussion under those specific videos. Now, basically, the concept of statistical population refers to a sum of all possible observations of a specified characteristic of interest. And this is going to entail the concept of the properties, the common properties which are going to be of a particular sample that is under investigation, of course, which are going to be displayed as common characteristics. Therefore, in a sense, we are going to give the concept of a population as a collection of possible observations of a specified characteristic of interest. And of course, this is going to form a basis for us of trying to define other aspects of terminologies that we are going to come across as a sample. Now, in this case, as I've said, this one is going to entail a collection or all what we have referred as all possible observations, which are going to have a common characteristic. Now, in this case, of course, the concept of a sample is going to refer to as a subset of the population. And of course, this is going to be selected using the technique that we are going to refer to as sampling. Now, as I've said that the concept of a population, therefore, is going to open for us a window of understanding these the terms, especially concerning the sample, which I've mentioned, that is basically going to refer to as a subset of the population. In this case, if I may give it in terms of an illustrative way, suppose we have this specific section representing a population, and then if we have a specific subset of this population, then therefore this is going to be referred to as a sample. And this is just an hypothetical example. So suppose this one, the whole of this one entail a population, a subset of this one is going to be referred to as a sample. And of course, a method that is going to be employed in trying to do a selection from this specific population is going to be referred to as a sampling. So therefore, as we have said that a sample is a subset of the population, a method that is going to be used in selection of this specific sample, then therefore is going to be referred to as a sampling. And from there, of course, we can look at the concept of a sample size. And as we have stated, of course, that the sample is a subset of the population, and the method that is going to be used in selection of this specific sample from the population is referred to as sampling. Now, the size of that is specific, or the number of elements that are going to be selected or be included or be part of, or the integral part of this specific sample, and therefore all the elements which are going to be contained in this specific case are going to be referred to as the sample size. So therefore we can, in a summary form, define this one as all the elements are making up the sample. So in a summary form, we can define a sample, a size, as all the elements which are making up a sample. And of course, we're going to look at this specific set of the three definitions in terms of a collection, which basically are going to be the derivative of this specific concept of a population, as I've just given it in terms of an illustration. Now, the concept of a sampling are basically referred to as an enumeration procedure, which is going to cater for all the elements of the population which are going to be under or of a specific interest. Therefore, we can define the concept of a census as a process of enumeration or observation of elements of the population which are going to be represented in a specific or the elements of a population which are going to be represented in of course, a specific set of a population. In this case, I can give it just a symbol or perhaps a definition whereby this is going to consist of a complete enumeration. So this basically is a complete enumeration of all the elements that are going to make up the population. So sometimes we're going to also use the concept of characteristics, whereby trying to give a statistical, of course, a representation of this specific characteristic of a population. Therefore, is also going to entail this specific element of a census. So therefore, we can define it in terms of enumeration of observations of elements of the population, or a collection of the data of these specific elements in a specific or a particular population. And that is going to constitute what we refer to as a census. And of course, we're going to see that, sorry for that, the specific characteristic which I've mentioned in this particular case are going to be measured in some way. And of course, they're going to be maybe appearing in terms of a measure or a characteristic, as I've said. So therefore, the concept of a parameter is going to constitute this measure obtained from this particular population, or the specific characteristic which I've particularly mentioned, which are going to be obtained from this specific population. Therefore, we can just in a summary form define this concept of a parameter as characteristics or measure obtained from the population. And lastly, we're going to look at the last but not least, we're going to look at the meaning of this specific concept of a variable, and of course this is going to be referring to an item of interest that it's going to take a variety of numerical values. And of course we're going to look at this one in details, especially when we're going to give a tabulation form of perhaps examples of what we refer to as frequency distribution in some of our discussions which are going to follow from this, especially on the ways of representing the what we refer to as averages. So in this case, I'm going to mention this specific term at that particular point, but in a summary form, we can define the concept of a variable as an item of interest that can take many different forms in terms of numerical values. So in this case, this is going to form a set of some of the terminologies that we're going to come across in our discussion on the concept of statistics. And I'd like to welcome our members to check our description boxes for various videos, of course, which are going to be similar to this, so that they can assist us create a connection between various topics of this concept of statistics. So that is it for now, guys. Bye, God bless you. Catch us in our next video.